Well, we're hoping to influence the Board of Trustees to, after having called an emergency meeting to address parental concerns over curriculum, we're hoping to get this Board of Trustees to vote to block the implementation of some of the very controversial sex ed curriculum. And there were quite a parade of speakers at the last meeting, and there was an overwhelming consensus in the room that a lot of this curriculum is inappropriate and even medically and factually inaccurate. So what they did is they agreed to call an emergency meeting to halt the implementation of this curriculum, and tonight they're going to take a vote on whether to delay this implementation until further notice or to roll it out in a couple of days here for some of the students in the Orange Unified School District. We hope to influence them to do the right thing, and hopefully there'll be some people here tonight that will bring more factual evidence and information to the platform that will be discussed here, and they can make an educated choice on the right thing for these children. What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen, is a war for our children's minds. And this is where the battle is waged. These are the seats on the dais where the Board of Trustees make decisions for what your children are exposed to, what they're taught. And they get here by you voting for them. This is the city of Orange. This is the Orange Unified School District. And what we are doing here tonight is we are going to witness whether, in light of all of the relevant factual scientific information and the impassioned pleas of parents, whether they're going to do the right thing. That's the superintendent right there, Ms. Hanson. She runs this district. She is the one who is ultimately responsible for following the orders of the board and implementing the curriculum that has been deemed acceptable and mandated by the state. And I want to remind everyone that is watching this that the way the state laws have been written and passed and signed by the governor, they allow for tremendous liberality in terms of implementation. The districts have plenty of power within their purview to decline and modify curriculum and still remain compliant. So what we're going to see here tonight should be a very interesting display of whether elected representatives actually listen to the public.
Board President Delagiani, board members, Superintendent Hanson. I have been here before, so you may remember that I have 4 children. One who graduated from OUSD schools, one in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary school. So the issue of sex education in our schools affects my family on many levels. I sat with my elementary student a few months ago and we viewed his curriculum together. I also went to view the middle school curriculum yesterday at my child's school. To be honest, it was a little uncomfortable to think of my kids seeing and hearing this information, as I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with their kids growing up and everything that comes with adulthood. But when I got home, I spoke to my 14-year-old son about the topic. He shared with me that there are several kids.
I do want to mention that I used to be a teacher in Orange Unified School District for several years, so I know a lot of teachers in Orange Unified. And I do know we have fantastic teachers here. And I am friends with many of those teachers. And if I understand correctly, when training was happening from our San Francisco trainers that came to train our teachers, there was a bit of a revolt that happened with the teachers in that they were not too happy about some of these things they thought they needed to teach. And so there had to be a little bit of intervention. I just want to say that not all the teachers are gung-ho about this. And
Kids at his school who identify themselves as something other than heterosexual. I told him that this subject matter was at the last school board meeting, and I heard parents here last week state that kids do not fully understand this subject matter and are not ready for this information. He laughed and he said, kids know more than you think.
Is that we're feeding our children lies. If we had the truth and we were giving that to them, it would be one thing, but we're not. There isn't any medical or psychological research even to found the gender spectrum on.
For children who are having trouble reconciling their feelings with who they feel they should be, the information that is proposed in this curriculum is very valuable to them, even life-saving.
Do you know what a sex scam is? Until I started this journey, I had no idea. So let me tell you what it stated on the very program OUSD is using to educate our children. Sex stamps can be used for oral sex, mouth, on your vagina, anus, or testicles. Oh, and if you don't know where to buy one, Teen Talk will tell you how to make one. Additionally, Teen Talk will also let them know where they can get a free penis and sex toy.
It can help them navigate through their middle school years and help their peers relate to them.
Members of the board, I am Dr. John Winkleman. I am a pediatrician and I've been in the Orange area for the past 26 years. I grew up in Orange. I went to Villa Park High School, then UCLA, and then off to med school in New York. I returned to Orange and now I work at St. Joseph and I'm affiliated with Chalk Hospital also. I'm a member of Orange County Medical Association, California Medical Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, among others. I understand that by law, school instruction for students is supposed to be medically accurate.
Out of all the parents I have spoken with over the years as a school volunteer, I would say 99% of them absolutely love their teacher.
Students are not being told the truth that anal sex is the highest risk behavior for transmission to HIV, and they can get STIs like chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and even E. coli.
They trust their teachers. So why then, when it comes to sexual education, do we suddenly have all this terror and mistrust?
Students are not being told the truth that anal sex is the highest risk behavior for transmission to HIV, and they can get STIs like chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and even E. coli.
Are the parents here who are protesting these changes also questioning the history curriculum?
They are not being informed that condoms are less effective if used anally. Condoms are not FDA approved for anal sex. In addition to Teen Talk, Apex also has some medical inaccuracies. I was shocked when I read one of Apex's quiz questions. It denied the fact that anal sex is the highest risk factor for contracting HIV due to high-risk sexual behavior. In reviewing the Teen Talk dialogue along with my other colleagues, we found significant portions of it to be medically inaccurate. However, page 167, for example, stating quick HIV facts, continues to label anal sex with a condom as low risk for HIV. This is not consistent with CDC reports.
Some of you may have seen that popular singer and actress Janelle Monáe came out a couple weeks ago as pansexual. She's popular on social media with kids.
Did you say Joe? Writing's pretty bad. All right, I'm Joe Imbriano. I run the Fullerton Informer website and the YouTube channel. And I want to thank, first of all, Mr. Ledesma for breaking open the attack on free speech here tonight and standing up for people who came out after work to show up to speak their mind. And I don't appreciate Alexia trying to play word games with protocol when we got a room full of people that are upset. You know, we've got a bunch of kids that are at the mercy of a completely corrupt and immoral legislature, and there's a lot you can do as board members. And you could start by saying no to this garbage. Maybe we should bring Charlie Sheen in here to find out how well those lifestyles have worked out for him. All right? Listen, I'm a parent of 4 children, and the school districts are involved in some really evil stuff right now. And the only thing between our children and this evil stuff are the people that we elect to the board. And so you've got people here tonight saying, hey, protect these kids. You're giving these kids a roadmap to have orgies and get disease and die a miserable early death. That's what's involved with this stuff. This is wickedness. This is not about inclusion. This is not about being happily ever after and walking off into the sunset with a rainbow behind us. This is a brutal, horrific trail of suffering, and there are medical professionals that could tell you till the cows come home how messed up a lot of these kids are. And you want to know why these social service units are so busy and these suicide wards are so full? It's because of what these schools are teaching these kids. And they're teaching these kids that they're a bunch of evolutionary accidents and there's no purpose in life and they need to experiment with everything that feels good until it comes back to bite them or kill them. I'm here to tell you something, folks. You need to wake up. The people in the state legislature are not your friends. It's been hijacked by a bunch of radical psychopaths. I cannot believe the stuff in this curriculum. And we're running out of time. We're running out of time to protect our kids. And it's up to you to stand up for them. You want to give some 15-year-old a rim job or have 2 girls start doing little things to each other that is not normal and find out what happens when boys start experimenting with men and animals, because that's where this is all heading. It's a slippery slope, and you're giving kids a bunch of toboggans, okay? I'm done talking. I just hope you listen to these parents. And in Jesus' name, open your eyes. Amen.
How many of your kids look that information up online? You think you are protecting your kids from this information, but it is out there. Kids know more than you think. At the last meeting, I couldn't believe that Mr. Ledesma was willing to take action on a non-agenda item. Do you know who you were listening to? That man with the camera at the last meeting identified himself as the Fullerton Informer. This is a tinfoil hat conspiracy website.
And there was an overwhelming consensus in the room that a lot of this curriculum is inappropriate and even medically and factually inaccurate. So what they did is they agreed to call an emergency meeting to halt the implementation of this curriculum. And tonight they're going to take a vote on whether to delay this implementation until further notice or to roll it out in a couple of days here for some of the students in the Orange Unified School District. We hope to influence them to do the right thing, and hopefully there'll be some people here tonight that will bring more factual evidence and information to the platform that will be discussed here, and they can make an educated choice on the right thing for these children.
That alleges that iPads are making kids infertile by design. Disney has built 666 into their company logo. And that NASA is a deeply satanic deception operation. We as parents need to realize that we would rather them hear this information in a safe, supportive environment.
Is that we're feeding our children lies. If we had the truth and we were giving that to them, it would be one thing, but we're not. There isn't any medical or psychological research even to found the gender spectrum on.
Then look up something on Google that they saw on social media. Aren't our children also too young to learn about genocide? I would think that these are more difficult concepts than learning about their own bodies and feelings around sexuality. I am stunned that you could possibly be swayed by conspiracy theorists.
Our research says that, and in fact, Dr. Laura Haynes, who is here tonight, who is an expert in this field, who has shared the research with me, I wish I could pull it up because I could actually quote the study for you. There's no research that says anything more than the fact that XY chromosomes exist and XX chromosomes exist, and everything else is still not proven by any DNA, any genetic factor, but mostly an environmental or sociological impact. So if that's what the science says, I don't really think that there's a reason why we should be shoving identity politics down the throats of our children, but we must respect every single human being.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There is no place and no time anywhere in any curriculum for any of us to do anything but recognize the dignity and respect that is due to every person, regardless of how they present themselves, what they look like, what language they speak, what culture or background they come from, or who they go home to at night. That is just, there's no place for that in our curriculum. But I would just urge you to consider, again, we're going to stay on this curriculum until it can be thoroughly reviewed, and let's give our children the facts. But in addition to that, let's give our kids a curriculum that is not, yes, they need the facts, right? They need to know about the birds and the bees. They need to know all the medical information. They need the CDC data. They need to know how these diseases and infections are transmitted. This is really important. They need to know things about the Gardasil. We've heard about a lot of that stuff. But they need tools to make good, healthy decisions and make good, positive relationships. Our culture is falling down all around us. I mean, let's give them something that they can use to make the world a better place. Build lasting relationships. Put sex where it belongs in a relationship, not first, but maybe a little further down the line. That's going to serve them well in their lives.
Yes.
It's called sexual risk avoidance. That's the kind of curriculum we should be looking at here, to give them the tools they need for not just for making decisions about sex, but about life decisions, about being a healthy person, about being more whole. Give them a chance. bring SRA to Orange Unified School District. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Corson. I'm a senior at Amadina High School, where I'm the co-president of Amadina's Gender Sexuality Alliance. I want to quickly mention that I wrote an op-ed article on the California Healthy Youth Act for my school's newspaper, Frontline, last month. That was much more in-depth and has a way better argument than I'm going to present tonight because I just wrote this like 30 minutes ago. But I'm going to be speaking mostly from experience as an LGBTQ student in Orange Unified School District, and my experience is having received sexual education courses from LGBTQ. I also want to preface by saying I don't have all the answers, but I do want everything to be medically accurate and inclusive for LGBTQ students. When I was in middle school at McPherson Magnet, I felt as though my sexual education was outdated and exclusively heterosexual and abstinence-based. The sexual education I received truthfully ostracized and stigmatized LGBTQ students. As an LGBTQ student who struggled,
And people who came here and proposed communist censorship.
Good evening, Dr. Hansen, esteemed board members. My name is George Rosca. I was born in Romania under the communist regime of Nicolae Ceausescu. I am a former student of the Orange Unified, here in Orange County, going to school to Valencia Park Elementary, Parks Junior High, Weta Park High School. I am the 8th of 12 children. Our parents moved our entire family here to the United States in 1991. The California Healthy Youth Act has a section called 51932A that says that if gender identity, gender expression somehow pops up in literature, such as history, science, or somewhere else, we cannot opt out our children. This is a book I was made to read in AP English in my 12th grade class called Beloved. I stopped at page 13 because it had bestiality scenes in it. I told my teacher I would not read it. She said, "You don't have that option." I came home, talked to my dad. We went, talked to the teacher. She finally sent us to the school principal. After long deliberations, they said, "Okay, we'll give you 2 options." But in fact, those 2 options were punishments. Option number 1, Paradise Lost, written in the 1600s English, which I'd encourage any one of you to read and to write a book report on it. You won't understand it. Option number 2, War and Peace, 1,300 pages almost and counting. You tell me that's not punishment. And going to school every single day while all of the other students were talking about and discussing Beloved, I was there, singled out and shamed. There is a loophole in our law that shames people. We need to safeguard the literature that is being shown to our kids. I get it. You can opt out of the comprehensive sexuality education under Part B, but under Part A, if this stuff happens to be in a book in your English class, you cannot. So I will urge this board. I have 2 sample resolutions that I'd like to give to Madam Chair. And I urge this board to bring these 2 resolutions here. One of them is parental rights in education, child education, which ensures all parents receive proper notice about any filthy material showing up in our children's textbooks, wherever they may reside. And number 2 is removal of harmful and obscene materials from schools. You know what my dad told me? Under a communist regime, none of this filth was ever taught. I encourage you to learn from Romania's mistakes of communism, and even under communism it was never taught. Don't teach it here.
As a positive, it is my hope that you will listen to the parents and children who are in your district on both sides, but ignore those who are here from the outside to build their own agenda. Thank you.
This is Joan Briano, folks, and we're going to give you some footage from the Orange Unified School District meeting from last night, Thursday night, May 25, 2018. You're going to see a long list of parents approach the podium and address the school board, explaining just how horrific and grotesque this curriculum is and how damaging and dangerous it is to our children.
Administrator Dr. Hansen and members of the board. My name is Dua Alman, and I'm a resident of Orange and have my master's from Chapman University. I serve on the LA Unified Human Relations Commission for Diversity and Equity. And I also sit on the board of the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California, which is an umbrella organization of about 100 Muslim nonprofits and places of worship, representing 500,000 Muslims in SoCal. After learning that Muslim students get bullied twice as much as their peers, I wanted to be more proactive. So I co-founded the Muslim Speakers Network to offer teachers, professors, and community organizations seeking to ask questions and supplement curriculum, request resources, a place to go. We do not expect anyone to believe in the tenets of our faith. We do not expect anyone to agree with us. We do not expect anyone to fully understand 1,400 years of history and today's 1.8 billion Muslims around the world. But we do expect that people acknowledge and respect perspectives other than their own. We desire to have an inclusive curriculum, so we certify and background check our speakers to make sure they know and follow the law. We understand that AB 329 aims to make schools more welcoming and inclusive. However, we do not agree with how it's being implemented. This pilot program is promoting varied sexual orientations and multiple gender identities rather than objectively informing students about them. We also see that if allowing one group to be represented means you silence another, this formula is unjust and will create new challenges for everyone. The subject of gender, sexuality, and marriage holds a fundamental religious value to Muslims, and for them, these values are not circumstantial. Thank you for listening to the concerns of this community last week, and we trust that you will represent your constituents well today by rejecting the implementation of this pilot curriculum and halting the high school pilot that has already been in full force. Please put this entire process on pause and take some time to understand community input. Schools should be a safe place for all students, all faiths, all values, all walks of life. We ask for your consistency regarding values your district hold dear. Have a fair representation for all and enforce anti-bullying for everyone. We appreciate that you consider our views and take tangible action to reevaluate this process of curriculum creation and implementation. Thank you again.
You're on deck.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is George Roska, and I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for hearing us speak last week. I would also like to tell you a little bit more about myself and why I'm here. As I mentioned last week, I was born in Romania under a communist regime, and no, I'm not propagating any communist agendas. My parents fled from that country because my dad was imprisoned for the faith, bullied every single day. In fact, I was talking to my older sisters who grew up in the school system there, and they were every single day singled out by their teachers because of their faith. We moved here in 1991, and so I didn't have to experience all of that. I attended elementary through high school here in Orange County. We were a poor immigrant family. I worked every single summer starting from high school all the way through college to make my own way and pay my own way because my parents couldn't afford it. I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona with a bachelor's in civil engineering. I serve as the president of the Railway Association of Southern California. I'm an associate vice president at my company, which is a top 10 out of the top 500 ENR A&E firms in the country. My son attends Crescent Elementary, and I have a second son that's going to start going there in the fall. I voted on the bond that we just passed because I care deeply about my children's education. I'm a pastor, and many of our parishioners are here in this school district who attend to Crescent, El Rancho Canyon, and many other schools. We deeply care about education, but not about being educated and forced to believe one viewpoint. In fact, our church even donates thousands of dollars every single year to low-income families. We give them backpacks full of school supplies. And throughout the entire school year, every Tuesday and Wednesday, we provide free tutoring with many volunteers from our church. We care about education. But as someone that has come from a communist country, I understand oppressive indoctrinating tactics. Here's what the definition of indoctrination is: the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically and to saturate with a partisan or sectarian opinion, point of view, or principle. This is what this Teen Talk curriculum is doing. I want to thank you again for calling this emergency meeting and for hearing out all views, including immigrant views and the minority views of my people. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Michelle Weisenberg. I'm a 25-year resident of OUSD. My 3 kids have gone through OUSD schools, and the youngest is still at Willow Park High School. I taught 5th grade at Sycamore Elementary School for 8 years. As we have seen, many people have strong emotions and opinions about the teaching of sex ed in public schools. Many of these opinions and emotions are based on religious beliefs, misinformation, or in some cases, conspiracy theories. I have heard outlandish rumors about the types of things that people think will be taught to the middle schoolers. I am here this evening to factually address the issue of state law mandated comprehensive sexual health education in our middle schools. Fact: California Education Code has included the California Healthy Youth Act sections 51930 to 51939 since January 1st, 2016, which requires that all public school pupils receive comprehensive sexual health education and HIV prevention education once in middle school and once in high school. Comprehensive sex education means the program must: A, provide young people with the tools to make informed decisions and build healthy relationships. B, stress the value of abstinence while preparing young people for when they become sexually active. C, provide medically accurate information about the health benefits and side effects of all contraceptives, including condoms, and as a means to prevent pregnancy and to reduce the risk of contracting STDs like HIV. D, encourage family communication about sexuality between parent and child. E, teach young people the skills to make responsible decisions about sexuality, including how to avoid unwanted verbal, physical, and sexual advances. E, teach young people how alcohol and drug use can affect responsible decision making. All of this is mandated under California law and thus cannot be changed. Here are some additional facts. Fact: abstinence-only education is not permitted in California public schools. Fact: abstinence from sexual activity and injection drug use is taught within the context of the comprehensive sexual health and HIV prevention education as per Ed Code 51934, Section 3. Fact: parents are notified of the impending topic and are given an opt-out option. Fact: teens who feel stigmatized about having sex are less likely to seek STI testing and treatment and more likely to not know proper communication skills about contraceptive use with their partners. Fact: comprehensive sexual health education is necessary for the reproductive health of all people from teen years into adulthood. Fact: knowledge is power. The more knowledge our children have about their bodies and their health, the more likely they are to make fact-based decisions regarding their own health. Fact: arming our children with factual information will protect them from misinformation presented in social media, TV, films, books, magazines, and friends. Fact: learning about sexual health will not make one change their sexual orientation or cause one to be depraved any more than learning about world religions would cause people to change their religion. The curriculum being presented by OUSD is age appropriate and tailored to each age group. People with concerns can preview the material at the district or school site. I encourage those with concerns to preview it and make up their own mind, rather than to get riled up by rumors about what the curriculum supposedly entails. I hope you, the board members, will remember the facts and ensure the health and safety of our students.
Rangier and Hannah Weisenberg on deck.
I'm Siobhan Gear, and I'd like to commend the board for providing this opportunity for community input. You've heard passionately expressed concerns regarding the new middle school health ed curriculum, but I think it's important to remember that emotion is not fact. To counter some of the misinformation we've heard, I want to remind you that this that what this curriculum will actually do. It will let students know that abstinence is the only certain way of preventing pregnancy, HIV, and other STIs, and we all want them to know that. But it will also provide information about all FDA-approved methods of contraception, along with how to prevent sexually transmitted infections. Also, it will provide information about identity and sexuality. Our kids are already looking online for this kind of information. We need to be sure that what they learn is accurate, rather than things they just pick up by asking friends, watching TV, or cruising the web. This curriculum will be age appropriate and medically accurate. Parents or guardians will be, because the law says so, notified that their child will receive this instruction, and they will be allowed to see the course materials in advance. They can then choose to opt out via written request. But frankly, this is not about the curriculum. It's actually about a parent or guardian's freedom to choose what's appropriate for their child. I don't want someone else's religious perspective or unfounded fears around sexuality to limit any kid's education. Adopting this curriculum now will allow important decisions to be made in each home while our kids get the important health education they need. Thank you.
Hannah Weisenberg, and then Gary Lawrence on deck.
Hannah has a hand.
Good evening, board members of the Orange Unified School District. My name is Hannah Weisenberg, and I'm a graduate of Villa Park High School class of 2014. I attended Boston College for undergrad with a degree in biology, and I'm currently a graduate student at Emory University for my master's in public health that works alongside the CDC. I would like to speak to you tonight about what should be a part of the comprehensive sexual health program required by California Education Code. First, I would hope that you only listen to and care for opinions and viewpoints of those with children in the district. Second, I remind everyone that LGBTQA+ is required to be taught and important for students to comprehend for more tolerance and acceptance of their peers who differ from themselves. The World Health Organization defines the term sexual health as a state of physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being in relation to sexuality. It is not merely the absence of disease, dysfunction, or infirmity. Sexual health requires a positive and respectful approach to sexuality and sexual relationships, as well as the possibility of having pleasurable and safe sexual experiences free of coercion, discrimination, and violence. For sexual health to be attained and maintained, the sexual rights of all persons must be respected, protected, and fulfilled. According to a CDC report, a decrease in the percentage of adults who are having sex at earlier ages since 1988, along with an increased use in contraceptives since the 1990s, has caused the U.S. to reach the lowest teen pregnancy and birth rates in years. If you look at your handouts, I've provided relevant graphs and tables for you to refer to. Graph 1 depicts the percentage of high school students who have ever had sexual intercourse starting in the year 1991 and going until 2015. As you can see, the percentage of teens having sex has decreased by 14%. Graph 2 shows the percentage of high school students who did not use any method of preventing pregnancy by sex, grade, and ethnicity. As you can see, 16% of 9th graders and 15% of 12th graders do not use protection, leaving those with female parts vulnerable to pregnancy and everyone vulnerable to STIs. This can also be interpreted that 16% of 9th graders, fresh from middle school, are having sex and not using preventative measures that they could have been informed about in middle school. Graph 3 shows measures that they could have been informed about in middle school. Graph 3 shows the decline of pregnancy, birth, and abortion rates among teens since 1991. It shows a steady and dramatic decrease in pregnancy rates as well as birth and abortion rates. The Huffington Post has published a map of states, Map 1, that must include abstinence in their sexual health programs, but not contraceptives. The CDC has published a map of states with the highest teen birth rates, Map 2, as well as a map of the states with the highest rates of chlamydia, Map 3. Many of the states from all three maps overlap, suggesting that abstinence-only education simply does not work. I hope this information has enabled you to make an informed decision on what should be included and is required to be included in the middle school sexual health curriculum. Thank you.
Gary Lawrence and Sean Winkelman on deck.
Members of the board, I'm going to have some this opportunity. My name is Gary Lawrence. I'm a public opinion pollster. I've been involved in numerous campaigns in 13 states, including California's Prop 8 and Prop 22, in defense of traditional marriage and opposed to same-sex marriage. I mention that simply to say that I do understand a lot of the dynamics of this issue. I have 3 points to make. My first point is to my fellow citizens. The school district is caught between a rock and a hard place. They are subject to be compliant to a very lousy piece of legislation whose agenda is not too subtle. There's lots of room in that legislation for sneaky agendas. No definitions of key concepts except for the simple ones like what constitutes a school district, but they don't address what constitutes gender identity, what defines gender expression, and especially what defines religious doctrine. On that particular point, in fighting for traditional marriage, same-sex marriage, and the concomitant behaviors therein is an agenda that is becoming more and more widespread. I have had the opportunity, for which I thank Dr. Hansen and Catherine Topor, to review the curriculum, and I give it a B+. Makes a lot of good points. There's still some things missing. To the board, I would say, take your time to review it, take a look at it, be very wary of prepackaged materials from outside companies and consultants. I note in there, especially the SOGI questionnaire under part 3, question number 10, is very much a mix of acceptance and approval. I would say develop your own. Specify not only what teachers must teach, but what they must not teach or even intimate with a wink and a nod. To the parents, I would say get to know the teachers. That's where the rubber hits the road. Where you think it's necessary, opt out, boycott, but don't keep it to yourself. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, and tell your legislators. In fact, the more we can show faces to legislators, the better opportunity we have to correct a distorted piece of legislation. And realize also as parents, you are the ultimate teachers. Learn from your students what teachers are teaching, and you get to correct them. You get to correct them misconceptions. It's in the final analysis, our responsibility. Thank you very much.
No.
Sorry. That's why I'm here. In reviewing the Teen Talk dialogue along with my other colleagues, we found significant portions of it to be medically inaccurate. They are not being informed that condoms are less effective if used anally. Condoms are not FDA approved for anal sex. In addition to Teen Talk, Apex also has some medical inaccuracies. I was shocked when I read one of Apex's quiz questions. It denied the fact that anal sex is the highest risk factor for contracting HIV due to high-risk sexual behavior. Apex says their information is backed by the CDC and HIV.gov websites, but there are noticeable inaccuracies. One of my colleagues, Dr. Arietta, head of infectious diseases at CHOC and a nationally published physician in infectious disease, states the number of pediatric cases of HIV has been rising over the past 5 or 10 years. The population of patients seen in his HIV clinic have moved from maternal fetal transmission to primarily young males between the age of 13 and 18 years of age. Concerning the information given to students in Teen Talk, he says there's a lot of misuse of real information. He states the lowest risk for STIs, including HIV, is abstinence. Over and over in medical literature, abstinence is repeatedly the single best recommendation to lower the risk of STIs and HIV. So I urge you, board, to postpone or delay accepting these pilots, or either correct the fallacies or find curriculum that is 100% medically accurate and unbiased, and it's approached in order to promote informed sexual health with our youth. I urge you all to also search credible medical sources to get accurate medical information.
Thank you.
as a mother of one of the teenagers from Galmodina High School, I've been close to my son, thanks to God, because I'm disabled at this point. And through that time, I enjoy to be around my son and the peers from high school, from junior high, from elementary. Many faces here. I know some of their kids, they start having sex at age 11. 11. They don't know what is sex, they don't know what is love, but they start having intercourse so little, so young, and the infections and the parents, as long as they grow up, so many kids, they say, oh, I'm gonna go and do homework. Homework, yes, with my friend. And they ended up with the boyfriend on time because they switch boyfriends and girlfriends. Many talking about family. Family who has a roots. Those roots from the family has to be strong. We as a parents, we have to have communication with our kids. And we have to have respect for them, wherever we come from. Even though our kids are attracted to another sex partner from their own sex, we don't have to kill them, like in other countries they do. And they come to do the same thing over here in our country. This is a country that is fighting for freedom. Where is the freedom? Why don't you guys let the kids have sex, not experience, but have sex classes to prevent illness, to prevent being used for a man, to prevent ending up as, I'm sorry, but as a piece of cloth using for boyfriends and then husbands. We need to teach our kids from little age that sex is one part that doesn't mean is nothing but love. Sex is not love. We need to love our kids. Where is everybody when that Orange District is giving classes for parenting? There's a parenting classes. Where is everybody? I didn't see faces. We always are the same parents. Where is everybody? They teach us. Sometimes we have kids that they are confused. They think they are bisexual, and they're not. Sometimes their own parents are telling their own kids, oh, you are a faggot. Why? Because he's not enough hard, strong body, or they don't like to do heavy stuff in the house. Everybody is different. We have to know our genes. We have to know our genes. You being here, you want to shut down this program. Why don't you go to the companies who are giving and killing our kids with the hormones? Go to church. Ask St. Joseph how many kids are suffering and they don't know if they are females or males because the hormone balance is imbalanced.
Daniel Leon Bronco, and on deck, JJ Mice.
Hello. My name is Daniel Leon. I am a student of Almadina High School, and I am also the club president of the LGBT club, which is known as Gender and Sexuality Alliance. And I just want to say that I can understand the concerns of all the parents that we know that many feel that either their religion is being violated, their concerns as parents, their political concerns. However, I do believe and strongly for a change in the sex ed curriculum because most of the curriculum is either outdated or, as the doctor pointed out, misinformed. So to prevent epidemics like the HIV epidemic, again, that happened in Orange County not too long ago, actually, a couple years, probably 20, I can't recall. Sorry, I didn't prepare a speech. But I just want to let you guys all know that sex ed is important to help prevent all our kids or my own fellow peers from contracting these such illnesses like HIV, any STD like gonorrhea, chlamydia, because they can be life-threatening and they can be taxing for the low-income families. So that's all. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. JJ Mice, Mindy Lima on deck.
Many kids are having sex at school.
Good evening. It's Dr. Hanson and respected trustees. I just wanted to take a second to come up here after last week. I was here for a different agenda item, and I was here to witness you all being kind of put on your heels by a lot of the drama that came in. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of encouragement. Encouragement to steel yourselves against the drama and hysteria and rumor that's swirling around this curriculum, social media, and coming in from outside of this district. I would urge you to listen to the stakeholders of the district. I give you encouragement to do that. I would encourage you to take advantage of the phenomenal staff that you have here. I spent almost 4 hours here yesterday, the day after last week's meeting. I very easily got through on the phone and sat down one-on-one with the curriculum coordinator. She was lovely, and went over all of the units in question that people are having a lot of questions about. She outlined the rigorous and robust process that the district has gone through to vet it. It's been a year-long process. It goes through 6 different committees, more than 7 times. It goes before parents. It goes before a curriculum board of almost 50 people. And you know, it gave me great confidence in the staff that you have here and the process and what is available to the district on the state mandated program. So I would encourage you to take advantage of the resource you have available to you. I learned, not necessarily whom, but since October, of the 7 of you, only 3 have taken an in-depth dive into the curriculum. 4 of you have not, and I think that lends itself to what I saw the other night, which is you feeling as if you couldn't answer the questions put to you. So rather than being threatened by someone with a video camera who's a blogger, who's pointing it at you while you're trying to speak, speaking very disrespectfully to you, by the way, Ms. Bridges, I have to say, being threatened by someone with dramatics, tossing books on the floor, wishing for the days of book burning in Romania.
Oh, come on.
I saw books being thrown on the floor.
Oh,
You're being drama.
You're being dramatic.
I'm urging you to steel yourselves. I would encourage you to take advantage of your staff, and I'd encourage every stakeholder that's here. I know several people here who know each other well through our kids' schools, to also take advantage of it. The district is here as a resource for us. They will outline it for you. They'll go over the curriculum. The way it's constructed, if you're uncomfortable with any portion of it, the opt-out is complete. And I would say that again. If you're uncomfortable with any part of it at all,
Thank you.
do it at home. The opt-out's complete.
That's a lie.
Diane, no is on deck.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Hanson. My name is Mindy Lima. My son attends Almadena High School, and my daughter graduated from Almadena as well. I was the PTA president at Handy Elementary School when my 2 children were students there. And I've been a registered nurse for almost 23 years here in Orange County, and I currently work at St. Joseph Hospital as a clinical research nurse. As a parent in the Orange Unified School District and a medical research professional in the community, I greatly value medically accurate and unbiased information, especially about a subject as important as sex education, disease prevention, and health. Emergency meeting and being sensitive to the concerns of the community regarding these issues. We want to take an active role in this curriculum selection process. And thank you in advance for being flexible and willing to make changes midstream in order to more adequately represent the constituents. That's truly a sign of good leadership. And thank you for your time.
And then Natalie Myrick, the delator or relator, I'm sorry.
Hello, thank you again for this opportunity to listen. I think in this time we have become so polarized that it seems like you have to pick one or the other and there is no conversation. And so I do appreciate this time where I can listen to people with different views as me. I admit that I did come here because of what I've heard about the curriculum, and I have not read it firsthand. I think my concern is that this curriculum is taking away the parents' right to decide what is appropriate to teach their children about sexual education, gender identity. The previous person, 2 speakers ago, mentioned that the opt-out is complete. However, I want to say that it is not. At the Orange County Department of Education meeting, they said that the sexual education portion of the curriculum, we can opt our children out of that, but the curriculum about gender identity, we're not allowed to opt out. Okay, so that is a fact. I think, sorry? Well, so my concern is if I, as a parent, cannot opt my child out of the curriculum, okay, then I want to at least be able to provide input about that curriculum, and I want to ensure that it is truly unbiased. I believe it is important to educate people about respecting people, even if they differ in their religious beliefs or their sexual identity, but how it is done is important, and I believe that both sides of the issue should be presented so that it's not indoctrination. I think it is important that people on both sides of the issue come together and work together and make sure that the curriculum is unbiased and it's accepted by both sides of this issue. And so that's what I'm asking, to postpone it, to allow yourselves more time to spend the time to read the curriculum, get more input, and not just allow parents to preview it so they know what is being taught, but allow parents to provide input about what specific issues are, what specific issues they are concerned about. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Deborah Stately on deck.
Excuse me. Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. I'm a PTO member in the Garden Grove Unified School District, as 2 of my children are in this school district. The reason I come to you today is to share with you a conversation I had and email correspondence with the superintendent of Garden Grove Unified School District. When I found out mid-April of this year about the California Healthy Youth Act, I became concerned and went to find out how it was being implemented in my school district. On Monday, April 30th, I emailed the area representative for my daughter's elementary school. To my surprise, at 3:16 p.m. on the same day, I received a phone call from the superintendent. She said she had called me herself because she had quite a few parents over the past couple of weeks calling her about the subject. She said GGUSD was not discussing or teaching anything having to do with gender identity or sexual orientation. I informed her that I was a GGUSD student myself from kindergarten to 8th grade, and she said that the puberty and sex education material taught in the late elementary, junior high, and high school was probably the same information I had received. She said their district is conservative, and if they had been teaching this curriculum, she is certain there would have been an uproar from the community due to the strong religious and conservative community GGUSD serves. I sent the following questions to my GGUSD superintendent and received response from her. Number 1, is GGUSD utilizing any particular curriculum that is in compliance with the California Healthy Youth Act and includes instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity? Number 2, if so, what is the name of the curriculum? Her response was, thank you for your email. As you and I discussed on the phone last month, although I believe it was CAPO and OCD at the time you referred to, this controversy is regarding a new supplemental curriculum called Teen Talk that we do not offer in our district. As I shared with you last month, and it remains unchanged, GGUSD has not adopted new materials since the passage of the California Healthy Youth Act. We are using older materials and will not be adopting any new materials until the time that the state provides a new list. When new health materials are approved at the state level, we have a process for adoption that includes both teacher and parent review. Regards, Dr. Moffitt. In closing, I want to encourage OUSD board members to take the time to listen and be sensitive to community concerns. Community relationship and trust is so important, especially concerning a subject that is such a vital part of one's culture, religion, and identity. I realize all districts work independently, and I just want board members to know that there are other large districts in Orange County that are not feeling pressured to immediately comply with AB 329. I hope GGUSD will proactively gain full community input on curriculum selection when our time comes. I have many friends in OUSD, and on their behalf, I hope you will hear their concerns and slow down this process for greater community input. Thank you to Madam President and members of the board for giving me your time for me to speak.
Deborah Stapley, and then Lisa Hayren.
Superintendent Hanson, Madam President and Trustees, my name is Deborah Stapley. I'm a parent and a grandparent in the Capistrano Unified School District, and I belong to an organization called UnitedParents.net, a network to which many parents in your district belong, and one that was created to help parents understand the problems created by the Healthy Youth Act and learn how they can, in tandem with their trustees, create the best possible outcome for their children. The most offensive parts of the law do not include the list of subjects that must be taught, but what is most troubling is the way in which the California Department of Education and their ACLU sidekicks are muscling districts into implementing curricula which interpret the law in a way that promotes their specific ideology, one that is in direct opposition to the values that many parents are trying to instill in their children. The curriculum you've selected, Team Talk, is the same one that our district decided to use. I'm here just to share our experience. Although the CUSD staff removed some of the most vile lessons from Team Talk, as you did before starting the pilot program last year, many teachers were very uncomfortable with what remained. And in January, one of those teachers alerted a friend to what was happening. As a result, a small group of parents met to discuss what might be done. And an intense letter writing, phone calling, face-to-face meeting campaign began in advance of the upcoming board meeting when a vote to adopt Team Talk was scheduled. Fortunately, our trustees voted to push this agenda item to the following month. That gave us more time to educate more parents. The letters and phone calls continued, and ultimately, our trustees decided to table Team Talk for this school year and directed the CUSD staff to assemble a curriculum review task force to come up with a better solution. There are 20 of us on this committee, comprised of staff, teachers, and parents. We are currently reviewing lesson plans from several different curricula using a rubric created by our staff. 6 teachers have been hired to create a new curriculum to present to our community in the fall, and we are hopeful that it will be one that is medically accurate, age appropriate, and not offensive to most families who live in our district. The law tells us what we must teach, but it does not tell us how these topics must be taught.
That's correct.
We have no problem teaching our kids about gender identity, for example, as long as we can teach medically accurate facts about it, rather than the ideology that is so pervasive in these state-sponsored curricula. Once parents become aware of what these curricula are and what they do, parents will organize themselves. They will stand up, they will object. So you have 2 choices. You can nip this problem in the bud by rejecting Team Talk now and creating something that is a better reflection of the values shared by your community, or you can implement Team Talk anyway and let the chips fall where they may. I would suggest to you that if you choose the latter, the chips will never stop falling until the children believe their children are safe. Thank you.
And on deck is Stephanie Yates.
Hi, Lisa Hayland. I'm a resident in Orange Unified School District. I have 2 younger kids, not in 7th grade yet. However, I'm hearing all this mudslinging back and forth, and at the end of the day, I think we've established that many of the people on the board are not aware of what is exactly in this curriculum, and I think that's really important before you implement anything. Number 2, we're talking about parental rights here, and I for one feel that every parent that sends their kids to school entrusts them to you every day, and so I think that our beliefs, our thought process should be taken into consideration when you implement things. I for one, if I didn't feel, I haven't read through the whole curriculum, But if I didn't feel that it was adequate for my family, they would not participate in it. I would pull my kids out of school, I would homeschool them. I mean, that's my belief, because I'm concerned that we don't really know what's in that curriculum, and it goes against many people's beliefs. I encourage you all to dig in deeper into reading it, get informed what's in there before you implement something. We entrust our kids to you, and that should be happening in everything, not just this, you know, all the materials that go through, right? We entrust them to you. There are kids, there are babies. I think that any of you that have children would want that for your own kids. So you're talking about other people's kids. Let's take care of them. Let's respect each other. We've got mudslinging back and forth. This is not what we're here for today. We're here today, right? We want what's best for our kids. We want them to be educated by people who are educated on the subject and what's being taught. More important than anything. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for having this meeting. And as you know, I am from out of the district. I'm actually from Brea. And I'm here because I do care about all the kids here in the same county. You know, I have so many friends that live in Orange with their children, so it's not like they're foreign to me. I've been in contact with my school district, with Carrie Torres. I don't even know if you guys know who she is, but she told me that she's not in any rush to even start looking at the new curriculum. She told me it's not like anybody's breathing down her neck or threatening her. So I don't understand why there would have to be a rush to do that. I also want to say, you know, somebody made a comment about shouldn't we trust our teachers? And there's some concerns with that. I'm not saying all teachers aren't trustworthy, but there is a Stop Educator Sexual Abuse, Misconduct, and Exploitation.org, and they did a study of, and there were nationwide just under 500 arrests for educators in 2015 alone, you know, and they did a survey of children in the 8th and 11th grade only, and 245,000 said that they were sexually abused by teachers or by coaches. And we're presenting this sexual education where it's explaining to them how to have anal sex, how to have oral sex. And what if one of those are those teachers? Imagine what that teacher is doing with those kids. I think that's something to be concerned about. In San Diego County, 9 teachers have been arrested recently for sexual abuse. 9 teachers. And it's a known fact, and you can find the data, that the majority of the child abusers, pedophiles, do not get caught. And they have hundreds and hundreds of children in their lifetime. So I think there's so many different aspects of this curriculum that really needs to be thought about, and parents really need to be informed. It's not about not teaching our children about sex. I think if it's done in an appropriate way with medically backed up information, and then also the responsibility on the parents, because I know I have an open communication with my son, and I've been teaching him about all of this stuff, and it's not in a biased way, but I teach him age-appropriate stuff that I feel like is right at his time. Not every child is at the same level in their age. So I would really ask if you would postpone it, just like Carrie Torres in our district isn't even considering it yet, you know, and we heard another person in their district, they're not either. So this is our children, and what you do, what you reveal to them, you can't take back. So thank you.
And Brianna on that.
Good evening. It's been a long time since I've addressed the board because I'm an old lady. My name is Karen Cohn, and I'm a resident of Villa Park for 30 years. My children were graduates of Villa Park High School, and they went all through the Toronto Elementary, Sarah Villa, and Villa Park High School. My children were leaders in the school and the athletic communities, and we practice our faith through the acts of kindness and leadership in our community. We don't believe in forcing other religious beliefs on others. My husband and my son are attorneys, and we are a family that believes in law, science, and the facts. 20 years ago, my younger son was given a presentation at Saravilla Middle School that was very religiously oriented, given by a group of parents whose stealth agenda was to demonstrate how girls' virginity looks like a beautifully wrapped gift that once unwrapped was absolutely worthless. I was not informed in advance of this presentation and was extremely offended that I was not notified what was going on in this presentation. Throughout my children's education at Orange Unified School District, I have found religious organizations from the outside of our school district bringing their religious beliefs into our district and our schools. So since my kids are now out of the schools, but I'm still very much involved in our community, I decided to look into what this California Healthy Youth Act code was all about, because I saw you on your videos. I saw you on your videos. And I was always wondering, why are these people from outside of our community, why do they have a voice?
I live here. I live here.
Okay. So I looked into just the facts involved in this bill. I think some of the things I saw on social media were not accurate. So I just looked at some of the things that were actually accurate. One of them is, the most important thing is this is a California law. We can't not follow the law. And so I know there are a lot of people that don't, but we do believe in it. The other thing that I think is really important is how bullying children who, I'm noticing my time's come, so I will say goodnight. Thank you.
Brianna, followed by Linda.
Thank you for getting my name right tonight. This is John Brianna. I run the FullertonInformer.com and the Fullerton Informer YouTube channel. I wanted to make a formal public apology for the title of the last video I put out. I had entitled that video, "When the Devil Runs the School District." And after listening to what I have heard tonight from people in this district, I'm not sure that's an accurate statement at this point. And I believe it probably more so applies to the state legislature. What we do know from what we have heard tonight is that Apex needs to go in its present form. What we also know tonight is that Teen Talk does not need to be implemented. What we have here is abject concrete proof that in other districts they are satisfying state mandate without implementing the curriculum that I believe a majority of this board has not gotten a handle on yet. So I think what's going on here is that we have a prime opportunity to look into other options, and that is to look at using what has been tried and tested in the past to keep our children safe and to make sure that the bullying environment does not exist. Garden Grove is a model. They are not cowering to the real bully. And ladies and gentlemen, let me make a point here. This camera and Mr. Imbriano are not the bully. The bully is the ACLU. And the real problem is the districts are folding like a bad hand at a poker table the minute they hear that they might get sued without objectively looking into the information that they're actually engaged in possibly psychological warfare on these children with this curriculum that has not been vetted. Now, we have had testimony here tonight from medical experts on both sides of the equation. And I can tell you, when you're dealing with children, you want to look at what's on both sides of the equal sign. And we always err on the side of caution. And we're not doing that right now. Because in a school district, The students are graded on their performance, and their performance is in part based on their homework. And some of you tonight have not done your homework. And I respectfully ask that you do. There is no rush to implement this. You are not going to get sued. If Ms. Superintendent is concerned about getting sued, the board can direct Ms. Superintendent to the superintendent of Garden Grove Unified and see how they've managed to get by just fine without taking this up another couple notches. Thank you very much for having this meeting tonight, and I hope you vote in a favorable way in adopting a delay on this. Thank you.
Point of personal privilege and sitting up on Robert's Rule of Order, so I think I can do that. My point of personal privilege, I'd like to address Mr. Embriano and just thank you for that apology, because I was sent the video that you put up, and yes, I was personally offended by your caption, and I do thank you for acknowledging that, because this is not a district where I'm going to go, okay? This is a district that really, really cares about kids, and everybody here is here for that purpose, to serve kids, and we want what's in their best interest. So I do thank you, and I hope I said your name right, Mr. Embriano, for your apology.
Thank you for accepting it.
Linda Cohn, and on deck, Thelma Davis.
Yes, my name is Linda Cohn, and I'm going to be up front. I'm one of those outsiders. I don't consider the Orange Unified District to be like an island. I attend board meetings at the Orange County Department of Education. I also attend board meetings in my own area, Placentia, Yorba Linda. We all have basically the same problems and the same controversies. The only reason I'm really here tonight is to bring forth what Placentia, Yorba Linda is doing about this extremely controversial curriculum. I want to mention I'm a retired teacher of 32 years. In fact, way back when, I think it was the 1980s, I actually was given the task as an English teacher to teach a lesson on AIDS and the danger of AIDS. So I've been there and I've done that, and now we're kind of far beyond that, and I'm concerned. After listening to about 50 parents and other concerned citizens at the last two board meetings at the county level, this was in April and May, I called my own district, Placentia, Yorba Linda. I spoke extensively to Dr. Nancy Watkins, Administrator of Curriculum and Instruction. And Dr. Watkins told me that Placentia, Yorba Linda is taking a very slow and measured approach to the implementation of AB 329. Initially, Dr. Watson said that she reviewed a checklist of compliance. She sent me copies of that checklist. I'll turn them in to the clerk, and I invite you to take a look at them just to see that they were in compliance with current policy. And she said the state is being very generous with them, very understanding with that this kind of legislation does take time to implement. She figures it's going to take about the next year and a half for the district to be examining the various curricula. And one thing, I'm not even clear how many curriculum packages there are out there. First I was told 3, and then next year I was told 5. Now I'm hearing that school districts have the right to write their own curriculum. This is all just within the last few weeks, so this is a very fluid process here. And that's a very good reason for not making a quick decision. Over those 1.5 years, what the district is going to do is they're going to form committees of teachers and parents and concerned committee members to bring them in, and obviously I'd like to be a part of that process. So I'm really suggesting to you that you at least seriously consider in taking a slow and measured approach, particularly when you have a situation where there's obviously a division and where there's obviously a lot of misinformation floating around. I don't have time to comment on that. My time is up, but I do appreciate the opportunity to at least speak, even though I am an outsider, admittedly. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thelma Davis. I have a son and a daughter in the district, and my mother taught sex ed when I was about my son's age. I knew more than probably some people in here, and more than I've used this lifetime, but for the most part, it was good to know as I grew up to help and to advise my friends. I was not completely opposed to this. I found a lot to value. The anonymous question box was wonderful. The kids can ask, not be embarrassed. The teachers can review the question, take names out. So, you know, why does little Jimmy look so gay? The teacher can reword that to, why do I think some kids are gay? Or something like that, and approach it. Very good. I like that it discussed recognizing domestic abuse, abusive relationships, sex trafficking, to help kids avoid that sort of thing. Yes, there were medical inaccuracies. I would like to see those corrected, particularly regarding HPV. It says you can get a vaccine. Well, you can. There's over 100 strains. It doesn't tell the kids that. It doesn't tell them that just like the flu vaccine, it only covers some strains. And my concern is that a young teen is going to go out, and frankly, a lot of adults too, and say, woo, we're safe, and not worry about the fact that there's a lot of other things out there. Additionally, if you're a minority, strains, Gardasil only protects certain strains, and it does not guard against the ones that African Americans tend to get. I would like to see all of that addressed and corrected, as well as the dangers of Gardasil in crippling young girls. I believe in the parents' rights to remove the child if they don't want them in there. Parents should be able to screen all of those videos for free. We shouldn't have to buy them. We shouldn't have to pay to watch them. I don't know what toothpaste is. I just know that's the name of one of the videos. And it could be really suggestive or promoting dental hygiene. Who knows? I want to see it if my kid's going to see it. I would like them to correct page 100 where it says genital to genital contact is an infected area of a person's skin that comes in contact with an open sore on another person. That could be part of it, but that's not really it. I like that they're covering the digital age and compromising photos. I would like some more emphasis on this. Teen suicides, such as Amanda Todd, whose picture went all over the internet, and her stalker followed her from country to country. And I don't know, they may be covering it, they may be leaving it up to the teacher. I would like to know that that's going to be covered more thoroughly. In short, there's a lot of really good things in this program. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe the stuff that's less offensive, we can teach part of it this year, and next year come back and revisit the other issues that we are concerned with how it's going to affect or upset the parents. Do address the LGBTQ, please, I'm begging you. My 15-year-old friend is dead today. My other 15-year-old friend dropped out of school. This is back when I was in junior high, both because they were gay, kicked out of the house, on the run. My friends in college theater major, yes, 5 of them were dead, 20s, 30s, 40s, and many, many more had stories of abuse. Please help stop this. Thank you.
And then Sharon St. Pierre.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. As a concerned parent, I read through the bill of AB 329, and me being a conservative parent, it really didn't sound that bad. What I have issue with is the curriculum that was formed in order to cover all the bases, took a lot of liberties that I am not comfortable with, and I don't disagree. LGBTQ does need to be taught. We do need to teach about anti-bullying and accepting people with their differences. However, I feel with this curriculum that we can do better for our children. This organization called the Adolescent Sexual Health Work Group, they reviewed 5 different curriculums that were made, and they gave them on a scale, either green, they covered everything according to the law, yellow needs minor changes, red, it needs major changes, and then they would put a gray area if it didn't even address it. And for Teen Talk, for the middle school, when it comes to all factual information presented shall be medically accurate and objective, they have gray. It says that there is not enough verified or supported by research conducted in compliance with scientific methods and published in peer-reviewed journals where appropriate, and recognizes accurate and objective by professional organizations and agencies with expertise in the relevant fields such as the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the American Public Health Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So basically when this curriculum was reviewed, they're saying you're missing out on all this medical information. And now that
that we have it, the curriculum still did not update their medical information, and this organization says they don't have time to review all the material. Again, so who's the last say on this, saying that this is accurate information? Because as we heard from many doctors, that is still inaccurate. So I'm just here as a parent, like, our children deserve more. Our children deserve the truth, they deserve the facts, they deserve what is scientifically accurate, and we shouldn't settle for less. Thank you so much for your time.
On deck is Eileen Blakowski.
Thank you one more time for the opportunity to be with you tonight. Again, as a licensed clinical social worker, I come from the mental health aspect of what is happening here, and I have experienced this type of dynamics of hearing the pros and cons of different situations and marital discords and just families where there is a dysfunction of some sort, some discrepancy. So I come to you from a neutral type of position and letting you know that I understand the position that you're in and the difficulties in what you're listening. But I also have a mental health component in having worked and continue to work with folks who are in situations that are very difficult for them. And I talked about this last week. I want to focus on the families that are not necessarily represented here, which are the monolingual Spanish-speaking families that don't get this information in a way that is properly expressed to them. I do work with parents who will come in whose children are questioning their gender identity. There's not a problem with that. The problem is that they're being misinformed, and the problem that they bring up to me is that they are concerned for the behaviors that come with that, such as the STDs. There's misinformation. There's no opportunity necessarily for them to properly engage in a conversation where they can understand what are their rights in terms of the emotional impact of when a child has a gender identity issue. I think it's important that it is taught. I think it's important that parents be the first ones to be educated in this matter, especially when it comes to our minority communities. I don't see representatives of the Vietnamese community here. There's a whole other cultural factor involved here that cannot be minimized. So I invite you to, like many have said, educate yourselves more about what this code brings, what has been created. I'm not minimizing the hard work that is being put into it, but I'm hearing over and over again the necessity to do more, to do better, to get additional feedback, to perhaps satisfy both sides of the pros and cons, I'm not really sure, but to be able to provide a nurturing environment for our children, yes, to feel safe. I work with children who have been bullied in Catholic settings, like in non-Catholic schools and public schools. I see it all, I work with it all, and I just don't see a transparency, I don't see a program.
I appreciate the Orange Unified School Board
program that necessarily fits what I believe is going to be conducive to the psychological well-being of parents as well as the children. So I strongly encourage you to stay awake, continue to listen, I know it's a long night, and take into consideration what you're hearing tonight in favor of pushing back something that there's no pressure for you to do anytime soon. There's time to implement something that can accommodate better the needs of the community here. Thank you.
Jessica Carson. And on deck, Danielle Jacobs.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for hearing all of us tonight. Unfortunately, I'm having some issue with my internet and I can't pull up the research that I'm looking for. Our biggest problem, my biggest problem, I think most parents' biggest problem with this curriculum is that we're feeding our children lies. If we had the truth and we were giving that to them, it would be one thing, but we're not. There isn't any medical or psychological research even to found the gender spectrum on. Our research says that, and in fact, Dr. Laura Haynes, who is here tonight, who is an expert in this field, who has shared the research with me, I wish I could pull it up because I could actually quote the study for you. There's no research that says anything more than the fact that XY chromosomes exist and XX chromosomes exist, and everything else is still not proven by any DNA, any genetic factor, but mostly an environmental or sociological impact. So if that's what the science says, I don't really think that there's a reason why we should be shoving identity politics down the throats of our children, but we must respect every single human being.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There is no place and no time anywhere in any curriculum for any of us to do anything but recognize the dignity and respect that is due to every person, regardless of how they present themselves, what they look like, what language they speak, what culture or background they come from, or who they go home to at night. That is just, there's no place for that in our curriculum. But I would just urge you to consider, again, we're going to stay on this curriculum until it can be thoroughly reviewed, and let's give our children the facts. But in addition to that, let's give our kids a curriculum that is not, yes, they need the facts, right? They need to know about the birds and the bees. They need to know all the medical information. They need the CDC data. They need to know how these diseases and infections are transmitted. This is really important. They need to know things about the Gardasil. We've heard about a lot of that stuff. But they need tools to make good, healthy decisions and make good, positive relationships. Our culture is falling down all around us. I mean, let's give them something that they can use to make the world a better place. Build lasting relationships. Put sex where it belongs in a relationship, not first, but maybe a little further down the line. That's going to serve them well in their lives.
Yes.
It's called sexual risk avoidance. That's the kind of curriculum we should be looking at here, to give them the tools they need for not just for making decisions about sex, but about life decisions, about being a healthy person, about being more whole. Give them a chance. Bring SRA to Orange Unified School District. Thank you.
I'm a senior at Amadina High School, where I'm the co-president of Amadina's Gender Sexuality Alliance. I want to quickly mention that I wrote an op-ed article on the California Healthy Youth Act for my school's newspaper, Frontline, last month. That was much more in-depth and has a way better argument than I'm going to present tonight, because I just wrote this like 30 minutes ago. But I'm going to be speaking mostly from experience. I'm an LGBTQ student in Orange Unified School District, and my experience is having received sexual education courses from LGBTQ. I also want to preface by saying I don't have all the answers, but I do want everything to be medically accurate and inclusive for LGBTQ students. When I was in middle school at McPherson Magnet, I felt as though my sexual education was outdated and exclusively heterosexual and abstinence-based. The sexual education I received truthfully ostracized and stigmatized LGBTQ students. As an LGBTQ student who struggled with
pronoun of they, them, or theirs. So these are new and different ideas that we've had before. Part of Teen Talk, there's a footnote in it, and I will just read it straight out from genderspectrum.org. It says, a child may have a non-binary gender identity, meaning they do not identify strictly as a boy or girl. They could identify as both, or neither, or another gender entirely. Agender people do not identify with any gender, and the descriptors for gender identities are rapidly changing, and there is a growing vocabulary for gender. So when you go to the gender-bred person on the PowerPoint presentation given to our 7th and 8th grade middle schoolers, you will see the first thing that pops up is it's not limited. Genders are not limited to this, so it's very open-ended as far as what gender can be. So in looking at this and many other aspects that I could see could be controversial, I dug into ACLU, their toolkit, which was a California Healthy Youth Act advocacy toolkit. And when they were expressing, it was for parents specifically, and it says here on page 4, talking to parents, say, talk to others in your community about the kinds of sexual health education students are receiving. And by the way, I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't want sex education. Okay, we all want sex education because it's necessary, it's needed, and we want to protect our kids, okay? But it says that 89% of the California parents support comprehensive sexual health education, speaking in the context of 8329. This blew my mind. So I'm like, wow, we're talking about queer umbrella and all these other things in here, that pansexuality, asexuality, things that many parents have never heard of before, and yet we have an 89% approval rate given by ACLU. So I looked at the footnote, and it was a study done in Berkeley by Norman Constantine, and I thought I would go ahead and contact Norman Constantine from Berkeley. So I asked him, would you please send me the survey, the parent survey? It was a 24-page data parent survey, and he very graciously sent that to me over email. I read it and was very surprised. There was not one question about gender identity, nothing on gender spectrum, nothing on asexuality, pansexuality. Anal sex was never mentioned. Oral anal sex was never mentioned. Some of the most, you would say, controversial aspects were not on this 24-page survey. So then I looked at the survey and saw that it was dated 2007. Okay, this law was passed in 2015 and implemented in 2016 based on a 2007 survey. So I am a little skeptical when I see things like this because I find it deceptive. Yeah.
We also have our attorney here in case the board would like to ask questions.
Well, I thank everyone for coming and for expressing your views. I thank you to those of you who identified whether or not you are parents of students in our district. And if you did not say that you were a parent of a student in our district, I'm assuming that you're not. You have every right to come here as a member of the public and give your opinion. But I, as a school board member, I pay particular attention to the actual stakeholders in our district, the actual parents, the actual students who use our schools. And I think that we have an obligation to listen to that community with particular attention and to be responsive to the sensibilities of that community in particular. I also can't help it, but was particularly influenced by parent leaders who have been parent leaders for a long time, who have been involved, who have done their homework, who have read the curriculum, if that's what they're here to talk about, who have been boots on the ground, helping kids, helping our teachers, helping our schools to succeed. I have great respect for those parents, and several of them were here speaking today. I'm very proud of our El Medina graduate, who is now in graduate school in public health, and brought us some graphs, how proud we are that, and she's not the only product of our schools, but I was particularly happy to hear her presentation. I also know, because all my kids went through these schools, and because I was one of those pretty involved parents myself, I know the quality of our people. And I know that our teachers want only the best. And I know that if our teachers are going from, with the goal of crafting a curriculum that meets the requirements of the law, and they're starting with something that is on the approved list from the state of California, and then crafting that using their own sensibilities and their own experience with kids and their own experiences in our community, I think that that holds a lot of merit. And to the parent from Brea who came and sort of cast aspersions on our teachers, you know, don't talk to us about our teachers. You don't have experience with our teachers. But my experience with our teachers is really positive. I trust them. I trusted my students to them. I remember, and I've said this before, I remember when
my children went through, they called it something different, they called it family life, and I don't know, it was the sex education, it was a long time ago, but we sat there and, oh my gosh, Sharon Tipple was like an angel from heaven. The way she presented it beautifully, factually, she was not flustered by any question. She was not embarrassed. She did not hem and haw. She did not cast aspersions. She did not espouse anything. She talked about the facts. And that's what this curriculum does too. And I'm one of those on the Board of Education who has looked at the curriculum. And part of it is black and white there on the piece of paper, and part of it is up to the teacher to bring out the essential learnings and the essential thought processes of whatever is being dealt with within her highly qualified area of expertise, which is dealing with students and in the scientific area, and to bring those particular elements to life and to make those meaningful impressions on kids. One of our speakers said, teachers can make a difference. Teachers do make a difference. I believe that. And I believe in our teachers. And I believe in our administrators as well. And did you see that list of boom, ba boom, ba boom, all the steps that have been pursued?
This is a whole lot of nothing.
And I know that's because based on some of the comments that were made tonight, particularly some of the ones that were pretty much way out there and way wrong, whoever made those statements probably hasn't spent much time at all.
Like the medical doctor from Chalk.
Looking into our curriculum here in Oregon. And if so, you know, a couple of things I do have questions about. First of all, it's the end of the year. We're knocking on the door of June. A delay, I don't think would make that much difference. We're talking about the end of June versus September or October. So perhaps there's not that much difference, but I do also respect the viewpoint of our fourth-year medical student who says, you know what, if we deny this year's students the right to see and learn these things, then that's a seventh grader, and they won't get that seventh grade experience.
Okay, let me just clarify. I don't think that, because maybe I'm not hearing it right, but my understanding is that if it was delayed, they would still get sex ed. It would just be what has been taught in the past. Am I right, Dr. Hansen? It's not that they would not get sex ed. Correct? Okay. Four-year medical student, but I also do appreciate the Chalk Hospital pediatrician who's been working for 26 years in pediatrics and also quoted the HIV director from Chalk Hospital who thought this was a misuse of good information. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that the teachers have done lesson plans, so they're going to have to go back and revert to an older curriculum. So they are prepared to move forward. That was the whole point of working a whole year. But of course, if there's a delay, if the board decides to move with a delay, there is a way that we can work with our teachers.
And I will get the updated. I do agree with Ms. Moffitt.
Madam President? Yes. Mrs. Moffitt still has the floor. Let's not go back and forth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let her finish
your thought.
We'll go back to you.
It's a long thought.
Yes, it was. And you were supposed to.
It is.
I agreed, and I gave you all the latitude you wanted until you were done. I wasn't done. Sorry.
Yeah, because you're talking about nothing.
What I would like to say is there were a couple of things that sort of stuck in my mind. Medical accuracy is certainly very important. Yes. And the tidbit about the Gardasil and whether or not that covers every strain of HPV, I think that that's a good point. On the other side, there was a speaker who said, don't we just need to look at the broad picture? Do we need to get down to the nitty-gritty? And that's kind of a nitty-gritty point, but it might also be an important one. I also have a concern about that students who hear this, they need to know the true facts about the efficacy of condoms in whatever way they are used. So those two things give me pause. But I have a feeling, because I have such trust in our process, in our wonderful educators, in our superintendent, and in our teachers, that I believe if we gave that direction, and I think that those things could be fairly quickly addressed so that we could, enact this on schedule. Reverting back to the other sex education program, it's pretty antiquated, as was brought out. It's a long time ago that it was developed, and there are considerations now that are, as was pointed out,
I like how sex is outdated.
facts of life in today's world, and perhaps, I think they were facts of life always, but we just didn't recognize them, and that's the detriment of our students, and to, students that grew up and maybe didn't reach adulthood because it was just too difficult, because there were so many stresses, against them. So, so I think we should just go ahead. I mean, not because I'm flipping a coin, but because I think that the issues that I see, after having looked at it and not having been guided by whatever's on the internet or whatever's the most outlandish and salacious rumor, because those are not included, because our teachers have decided we're not going to have anything that's not correct and it's not appropriate for our kids. They're not in our curriculum. So, so I think we can do this. I think we can do this on schedule, and so that's what I would argue for.
We're going back to Mrs. Lipsack. Can we keep it down in the boardroom with the cheering and the back and forth, please? This is the time for the board to deliberate. Thank you very much.
Madam President.
It's yours.
I do want to mention that I used to be a teacher in Orange Unified School District for several years, so I know a lot of teachers in Orange Unified. And I do know we have fantastic teachers here. And I am friends with many of those teachers. And if I understand correctly, when training was happening from our San Francisco trainers that came to train our teachers, there was a bit of a revolt that happened with the teachers in that they were not too happy about some of these things they thought they needed to teach. And so there had to be a little bit of intervention. And so I just want to say that not all the teachers are gung-ho about this. And